To those of us who have been involved over the years in broadcasting of football games from this athletic field. But tonight it's a little bit different. Tonight it is the First State Drum Corps Classic, the second annual. Mike, we want to talk a little bit in these opening minutes here about Drum Corps, how it started, how it evolved to the point where it is now, where it's really a big operation.
Okay, Gary. The history of Drum Corps actually dates back to the post-World War I era, when the veterans were returning home. They started these drum and bugle corps as parade bands to celebrate the colors as they came home. It wasn't until the 50s and 60s that we actually got into some competitive corps. These were sponsored by the American Legion and the VFW Post, mostly military organizations. However, some other also youth organizations such as the CYO were also involved. These corps in 1971 came under the general direction of something called Drum Corps International, or DCI. This group was founded by the corps themselves. It consists of the top 25 corps of the championships every year, and they become the voting members of the corps. They make the decisions, what the corps is going to do, what the requirements will be. Drum Corps, it consists of brass instruments and percussion instruments. The brass instrument is a very specific instrument to drum and bugle corps. It's a bugle. It comes in different sizes, 8 different sizes totally. You do not find it in marching bands or any high school bands. It is an instrument specific to this type of media.
It's also, it's similar, and if you look at it, it looks a little bit like a trumpet, but it's different in that it does not have the same type of keys on it.
Or valves, okay,
valves.
Exactly. Well, what they have done and recently, the instruments you find in most high school organizations or public school organizations is a 3-valved brass instrument, like the trumpet or the baritone or some of the instruments you find in the high school band. However, in drum and bugle corps, it's a 2-valved instrument, and it does require a different technique. Also, it does require a little more air to get the sound out in a bugle, so it does require some retraining when we take these musicians from the high school and college level bands.
Now, the instruments that they are allowed to use in a drum and bugle corps, of course, drum and bugle.
Exactly.
We see some other types of instruments down there as well.
Yes. The percussion, when I say drums, we mean percussion totally. There's a battery organization, which would, as we go along, I'll point those out. It would be on the field. They'll be the marching unit of the drum and bugle corps, consisting of bass drums, snare drums, tenor drums, and cymbals, like you'd find in a high school organization. However, up front, in front of the field, we find what's called the pit ensemble. This pit group can play all or any percussion instrument that exists, and sometimes they'll even use extra things like sirens and other noisemakers to get special effects out of.
But as opposed to like the bands you might see at halftime, you will not see flutes and trumpets and tubas and those
correct.
kind of instruments.
There are no orchestral or concert band instruments in this organization. This is strictly a bugle and drum corps, whereas in college bands or marching bands, you'll find the entire band, which consists of woodwinds, brass, and percussion instruments.
There are 6 units here tonight from various parts of the country, and we'll be giving you information about them as our telecast goes along. We are fortunate in that 3 of them finished in the top 25 nationwide in last year's national competition. One of them is from 2 of the units that finished in the top 25 that are here this evening are from Florida, and one is from Illinois. Pennsylvania, I'm sorry. That's right, Pennsylvania. Word Illinois slipped into there by accident. There's a high quality and a high caliber to these organizations. A lot of time is taken by the members and the people involved in practicing. It is a more or less full-time job.
That's exactly right. Some of these organizations actually start as early as Thanksgiving break, when the college and high school musicians are off, to start their first camp. Starting after Christmas, they usually get together for one weekend out of the month to actually start rehearsing earlier. All right, and it's not until June when we find that these groups actually get together as a full group. They go on usually 2 tours for the summer. 4 weeks in the latter half of June and parts of July. They take a short break and then do the last 4 weeks of into July and August, right up into the final championships, which this year leads us into Madison, Wisconsin.
All right, we'll be talking more about the scoring, the judging, and how all that works as our telecast begins. We hope you enjoy the program this evening, and we'll be back in just a moment. Bridgemen will be starting off the medley called The Best of the Bridgemen.
Over the last few years, that's right, Gary. They're back after a year of inactivity, or the Corps. They folded last year, and they're back. Hopefully they'll have a better year this year.
They have 42 members in the brass, 27 percussionists, 20 members in the color guard, and with the drum major, that gives them a total of 90 people on the field. Now, as you're watching, the people you see in the green shirts are the judges. There are 3 in the press box, and there are also judges on the field level, and they're looking for various things. They're listening for the music. They're also looking for the precision of the unit.
That's right, Gary. We're also watching, especially for visual effects that you'll be giving. The music is certainly important. The 3 judges upstairs are called the general effect judges, and they're listening for all aspects of the music and visual. On the field, we have the more specific judges called field and ensemble judges. They're looking for more temperate things, such as are they in step and so forth. Should be an entertaining show.
Bridgemen. Moving now into the Al Jarreau song, High Crime. selection is a feature for the percussion. It's called Mosaic. Very effective piece. Now Motown medley. Songs of the Four Tops, Temptations, Jackson 5, and the Supremes.
Bridgemen, good to see you back this year. Well, it's great to see the Bridgemen back this year after a year of being off, getting them back into the swing of things in DCI. I hope they make a good go of it this year.
Now, each unit is entitled to only a certain amount of time on the field.
That's right. The total maximum amount of time that can be on the field is 11.5 minutes, and that is set by DCI. Generally, there's also a minimum, too. I do hope they made that, otherwise there will be a penalty points assessed for it.
Well, in that portion of the medley there, we only heard one of the songs of the Jackson 5 as opposed to a Motown medley. Did they cut it short?
They may have. This early in the season does start about the first weekend in June with the first shows. So this is only the fourth weekend that these corps have been out. It does go all the way up to the middle of August where the championships are held.
So they're all gearing up for that kind of a championship setup right now.
Yes, right. They've got plenty of time left to get their things straightened out and clean up their act a little bit.
They've been in the DCI Championship Finals 11 different times in the past. Their last appearance there was in 1983.
That's right. They were a fantastic corps back then. They had, matter of fact, they took best drum line overall, 80, 81, and 82, I believe. And they just had a fantastic unit going on. Due to some financial problems and some director problems in the past year or two, they did have some problems. And they're just trying to get rebuilt right now. I wish them a lot of luck.
Now the judging. We saw the gentleman in the green shirts on the field, also some judges in the press box here in the stands.
Yeah,
some of the aspects that they're judged on.
Okay. First of all, as you said, there are 10 judges altogether. There are 3 general effect judges up in the press box. One who does general effect visual. He or she is looking at the entire program and trying to make a judgment or a score on that overall effect that the program portrays to the audience or to the judge itself. Also, there's a general effect brass, who's judging, of course, the brass line of the bugle person. Overall, the brass had their general effect, their visual and their musical presentation, and also a general effect percussion person. On the field, however, we find a field percussion judge who judges the percussionist as they see them independently, as is one person's stick not high enough, so to say, or is one person out of step. He looks at it from an independent point of view. And then there's a or an ensemble percussion judge who looks at the entire percussion line as a musical organization, okay, and says, are they together? Do they play together? Okay, are they playing the rhythms correct? And also on the field, you of course have the brass ensemble people.
They may have, the Bridgemen may have scored some high points there for their percussion.
Yes,
their percussion feature mosaic was extremely effective.
Yes, it certainly was a nice piece. That has always been in the past their strong point, their percussion line. Again, they took 3 top honors up in the nationals in 80, 81, and 82. They're working at it. They're getting their act back, and I wish them a lot of luck in that aspect.
How do you think the judges will react to the singing?
That's
different.
It certainly is different. It's been happening the last 3 or 4 years in DCI with different, of course. I've never heard that much singing at one time. Usually it's just vocal sounds, not so much words, because it is difficult to interpret words on a football field, especially if you're in a large stadium. So that could hurt them later on when they go to nationals, when the stadiums do get a little larger.
Well, it worked with the people here in the stands this evening.
Well, sure, but they love that kind of thing. But of course, they want to go for their score, but you do want to put a good performance on. If the stands or the people in the stands get into it, that certainly will affect their performance. If they think the crowd is going crazy over what they're doing, they're going to do a better job. Okay? If the crowd just kind of sits there and is not interested, and of course that's going to affect emotionally how they do.
This next group came all the way from South Weymouth, Massachusetts. They're the Sancians. They are a smaller organization than the one we just saw. Bridgemen had 90 members. Sancian has less than 60s.
Okay. Yes, the Sancians have been we're a Class C band, which is a smaller group. That means they don't tour quite as much or as extensively, and their numbers certainly are smaller. They did try in Class A last year, and I think they were one of the finalists last year for the Sancians. So we're glad to see them here. They certainly have nice uniforms on tonight.
First selection is diversions.
That's right. Right now they're doing a warm-up on the field. This is not counted as part of their time. They do not get counted as far as the timing on the field until the first step off of their performance. Okay, this is just a warm-up.
Also giving them a chance to set up some of the percussion equipment here on the near sideline.
That's right. What we see in front of us, as we said earlier, is the pit ensemble. The pit ensemble is confined between the 40 and 40-yard lines on the football field. And you can have as much in there as you possibly want or can afford in most cases. Lots of mallet keyboard instruments such as xylophones and bells and vibraphones, and also timpani and other kinds of drums and effects and cymbals that help out with the performance to add to the battery percussion. The battery percussion are the percussion that are on the field that are marching. They have a very small battery, the Sancians here. They have 3 snare drums, 2 tenors, and a cymbal player. Okay, they only have 1 bass drum, and it's in the pit itself.
Of course, in addition to the instruments and the band members, they carry an awful lot of equipment with them as well that is used. And
yeah, known as the guard or the color guard, and they're helping out for the visual part of the performance. Now, band members certainly help out too with their uniforms, what they might do with their drumsticks or their brass instruments, the way they use their bodies, are all part of the visual aspect of the performance, and that's what they're being judged on tonight, both musically and visually.
All right, from South Weymouth, Massachusetts, Sancians.
The mics are off. Take a break.
called Invitation to Dance. Next, they will do a medley from the motion picture that was out around the end of last year, An American Tale.
Sancians, former DCR World Champions in the Class A60.
From South Weymouth, Massachusetts. A long trip for them, but the folks here appreciate it. Extremely effective performance.
Nice use of colors also in their silk line. Some really nice visual effects were presented there. Did a lot more movement than we saw in the previous score, and that certainly affects their visual score.
Bridgemen tended to stand in a presentation and play songs.
Especially during the percussion feature. That really hurts their visual score quite a bit. When they're not moving, it's sort of a stagnant visually as you're looking at it.
Or Sancians, just about all the time, had some kind of movement going on.
Yes, they did, and that really helps them out.
The other thing, of course, Mike, at the opening of the program, we talked about where drum corps originated, and started out as the type of thing that veterans coming back from World War I did. For parades. Certainly, as we watch this performance and all these performances tonight with the percussion that they set up on the side, these are not parade units anymore.
Not anymore. The days of Sousa marches are over. They don't do those anymore.
You don't hear Stars and Stripes Forever too often.
Not too often in these scores. This is more of almost a Broadway play in 11.5 minutes. And we're going to see 6 of them tonight.
And some of the selections that they play are quite challenging because musically they're not written for bugles.
Exactly.
With the sharps and the flats, they're very hard to play.
Yes, these, of course, all music has to be arranged for this group. You don't go to the store and buy a drum bugle chart. They just don't make such things. You have to have this music specifically arranged for your group.
And that means a lot of support personnel as well.
Exactly. Many of these people have staffs of 25 or to 50, just in the staffs. And of course, the corps, the maximum number is 128. When I say staff, I don't mean the people that travel on the road with them, but the people who write the drill design, the movement on the field. I'm talking about the people who arrange the music. Okay, there's lots of things that are going on. Lots of things are going on. A lot of people it takes. And not to mention all the volunteers who travel with the Corps, who help with everything from accommodations to helping them find something to eat and just sewing during the day. It's amazing the people they have. And most of these people are volunteers because they love the activity so much.
And of course, the members of the musical unit themselves are all young people. It's volunteer, and it takes out of their time with their school and other activities that they would be involved in. Our viewers may notice that the football field is lined out here, which it was not just a couple of days ago, and the sideline markers are up. All of these formations that they do are more or less put down on a grid when they practice, and the lines from the football field, in a sense, help them.
That's right. The lines on the field are basically guide points for them to go off of. It would be somewhat difficult for them to perform without lines, although some corps are trained to do that. They almost could do this show in their sleep. They've been practicing so much. These corps practice anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day sometimes, especially in the beginning. A typical day would be to get up in the morning, practice, first eat breakfast, practice, catch a little bit of lunch, practice, eat dinner, go to your show, then you hit the bus and go into the next town, and usually sleep on the bus. And if you can get a couple hours in on a local school in the gym floor, you're doing pretty well for getting a few hours in of sleep.
And of course, not all the gym floors are the same size, so that becomes a little bit trickier when you're working out the routines.
That's exactly right. The larger the group, the more complicated it becomes. And finding just simple things like showers, some people take for granted. They look forward to that. I'm sure, as much as they enjoy this, I'm sure they look forward to sleeping in a bed when they get done with these tours.
I'll bet they do. And I'm sure the bands are appreciative of the fact that they're in a pretty fine facility here for this competition, the First State Drum Corps Classic, the second annual one. I know that the field set up here, what they have inside to work with, is first class, and the people putting it on have really gone out to make them as comfortable as they can be.
They sure have. These, of course, as you may know, this is the second annual Drum Corps, and that means second annual in the state of Delaware in quite a long time. As a matter of fact, the last time there was a corps show here was back when the American Legion sponsored it, or one of the VFW posts. It's been quite a long time since we've had a corps show here, and I think we're getting a renewed interest into the Delaware area, or the Delmarva Peninsula. Love to see it, because we'd love to get a corps here sometimes ourselves.
The weather here this evening is absolutely delightful and is a particular assistance to the Drum Corps. It is not very hot. We have a slight breeze blowing. I don't know if they can feel it on the field. But there is a slight breeze. It's a nice, cool evening. That helps the performance.
Sure does. You don't want to, when it gets closer to the middle of the summer, July and August, we know how hot it can get. And depending especially what part of the country on, these drum corps travel all over the country, and that includes the South, where it can get quite hot. And when you're in wool uniforms, that doesn't help at all either. So and that affects their concentration. So this is ideal weather for them.
The uniforms are not necessarily made for the comfort of the wearer. They're made for visual effect.
Exactly right. Visual
on the
effect.
field right now from Malden, Massachusetts. The organization is called the Diplomats.
We see the judges getting ready. They're giving them the okay.
Are the judges ready?
The judges work as hard as the Drum corps.
They sure do. They do a lot of running. They can in no way interfere with the corps whatsoever, so they have to be constantly on the lookout and giving comments on the tapes as they're going along. Drum major salute. Very integral person as part of this. He is the leader, both on and off the field.
Going to do some rock selections. Lonesome Susie and the Chicago song. Does anybody really know what time it is?
solo, a gymnast danza. That was their percussion feature.
And again, a lot of movement.
Yes. Nice color change. Diplomats closing with Chicago.
From Malden, Massachusetts.
Well, apparently, this corps, if you're wondering why the guard isn't wearing any uniforms and some of the band members, apparently they had a bus breakdown, and that had their uniforms on it, so that kind of explains some of the visual effects we saw today.
Reason probably why the color guard all in non-matching uniforms,
Yeah.
except for the T-shirts. An unfortunate circumstance, but
that's what happens in drum
it
corps.
happens, yeah.
Especially when you're on the road for as long as they are. There's starting down to be some breakdowns.
From Malden, Massachusetts, the Diplomats. There's going to be an intermission here at the field. We'll take one also. We'll be back with the in just a moment.